Excited to have you.
Good to meet you. What do you want me to say?
It's good to meet you too, son.
That's a whole other tangent.
Hey guys, this is Torin Watson. Welcome to this channel, or welcome back.
It is what matters most. It is the most important thing that ever has been, ever will be, and currently is.
Right.
And all these things are temporary.
Right.
It's temporary issues compared to eternal ones, right?
That's a good
And
point.
I can deny a temporary thing. Well, to anyone who doesn't currently believe in God, I'm not going to tell you to be a Christian because that's your choice, but I will tell you.
I'm really excited today to get to welcome one of our own sons. So today I've got our son Torin, and we're just going to share a little bit from his life and some things that I think you're going to find valuable. So Torin, why don't you share a little bit about where you were born and just a little bit about your life up until now.
My name is Torin Watson. Obviously, I'm 15 years old. I was born in a small town in Sweden, and then we went to Ireland, and then I've spent all of my formal years in BC, Canada.
Yep.
Just this one town that we've been in for
Yeah.
my whole conscious life.
Yeah, exactly. So this last summer, we actually went to, we had a really cool trip together, you, me, and one of your sisters.
Yeah.
And we drove from coast to coast and back to the other coast again. It was about 12,000 kilometers. I think it's about 7,500 miles.
Yeah, we drove all the way to New York.
Yep.
Yeah.
And back.
Yep.
And Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
And everything in between.
Yeah.
Do you remember how many states we hit?
Oh, like 15, 16?
Yeah, I think it was more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was in the high teens.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Why don't you share a little bit, because you got to meet one of the heroes of faith.
Yeah, so for many years I've followed a guy named Cliffe Knechtle, or however you say
Yeah,
Knechtle.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does apologetics, like Roman-style debating in like these college campuses, kind of like adjacent to Charlie Kirk, but not quite.
Yeah.
More just strictly faith-based. And I've really resonated with his talking style and how empathetic he is. And it was an honor because I got to meet him this summer, and I actually was able to get baptized by him, which was a very interesting experience.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got to ride in his car, and we got to talk about some theological ideologies, and that was just a very interesting experience.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And you got to meet Pastor Cliffe
Stuart and his son Stuart. Yeah, that was also very cool.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a very special day because we got to hang out with them, and yeah, it was pretty amazing. Pastor Cliffe really went out of his way to give a lot of time to you, and you guys had a chance to chat very privately a few times throughout the day. Yeah. And so what is it that you have really come to? Because you were the one that introduced me to Cliffe, actually. Yeah. I didn't know. You came and showed me him on YouTube. Yeah. So what is it that really resonates for you when you watch Cliffe and Stuart?
The lack of ego that they have, because in a weird, twisted way, a lot of street preachers develop a sense of highness in their self, that it's them who's converting people and not God, and it's through their own works and not God's works. Yeah. And Stuart and Cliffe have always kept a down-to-earth, glory to God type style, and they have a level of empathy that's I don't commonly see these days. Yeah, no, that's definitely, I agree with you. And I remember I was really touched when we were there, because he's seen by millions and millions of people, well, both of them, Stuart and Cliffe. Oh yeah. And yet when you meet them in person, they're just people. They're just, and I love that. Yeah. I love that too. Yeah, I was really touched by that. You gave him some tough questions, and he was honest with you, and he said sometimes, Torin, I don't know. Yeah. And I was blown away by that, rather than having like a big false
ego.
Answer or a half answer. It was just a humility. I really am not aware. Totally. Yeah.
So what is it? Because I want to get into in this conversation, I want to talk with the people that are watching how you approach Christian apologetics with people too. So what is it when you have seen that in Pastor Cliffe and Stuart that has made such an impact on you that's impacted when you talk to other people? What is it that you find so touching or impactful about the humility or not faking an answer if you don't have an answer to give somebody?
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, we actually have a completely different apologetics approach. Yeah. He has a more relational and emotional approach. I have a very analytical approach to it. I don't like to convince based off feelings, emotions, and experiences. I like to base it off science, history, and cross-referenced just facts. Yeah. So the fact that he's a guy I look up to is actually ironic, frankly. Yeah. And there's the Living Waters guy. Who's like, have you broken any of the 10 Commandments? Ray Comfort. Yeah. Yeah. And again, all of my like religious heroes. Yeah. I have completely different styles to them, and I think the reason I can appreciate them so much is because they are capable and are natural of things that I really can't do, that don't come naturally to me, and I admire that.
Yeah, that's very good. Very good. And what would you say has impacted you about Cliff and or Stuart that you met this summer that translates into how you talk with people about your faith?
A lot of people who are Christians talking to non-Christians, intentionally or non-intentionally, treat it like they're at a higher place in life than you are.
Yeah.
That even though it is something that you're informing them of that they don't necessarily know of yet, Stuart and Cliff, they treat it like you're equals who know more things in different subjects. And it's the feeling of being equals that I can appreciate, because a lot of people treat it like, I'm here, you're there, let me bring you up to me.
Right.
Not like, I'm here, you're here, I know this much about it, and you know this much. Let me help you get closer to God.
I love that. So that comes back to humility.
Of course, yeah.
Again, and just like respecting everyone that we talk to. So, growing up, we always wanted our kids, I'll just share this a little bit, and you know this, we always wanted our kids to feel comfortable around many different kinds of people, whether they were impoverished or whether they're multimillionaires or whether they have status in a community or a city or whether they don't. We always wanted our kids to appreciate every human being for who they are and where they're at, and so we've had some pretty cool experiences growing up, talking to a lot of people. And so you actually, you know a lot of people in our town. We'll be driving around, and Torin will be like, oh, that guy, oh, her, oh yeah, I know him. I'll be like, what? Like, how do you know all these people? Yeah. But always when you're walking around town, you always talk with people.
Yeah, of course.
And so tell me, when you're walking around and you meet people, because you're very good at just meeting people on whatever level they're at, and it's true, and you care about people, and I think that's why a lot of people open up to you, and why God allows you to have these really meaningful conversations, because you're just like, you're a human being with worth and value. But talk to me a little bit and share with them when you approach, because you're quite effective at a very young age sharing your faith and ideas. And so what are you thinking? What's your perspective when you're like meeting somebody that you don't know?
Well, frankly, I never like to just jump into it.
Yeah.
Because I don't like for them to feel like the nature of our relationship is a goal.
Right.
And there is one goal, and when that is fulfilled, we're done. I don't like that approach. Yeah. Personally, I totally understand apologetics people who do that. Yeah. But for me, it personally feels disingenuous, and I'm not a fan of it. I'm not saying it's morally wrong. I think it's morally ambiguous. But I don't think it's for me. So I always like to establish a level of friendship or companionship and relation and connection before I ever approach that. Now, I'm not saying the topic is taboo to speak of, but I like to make it very clear that I am not speaking to them for the sole purpose of converting them, because that makes it seem like they are a tool. Right. I've noticed that a lot. I used to just go straight at it, like, hey, let me convert you. Yeah. And it made some people that I spoke to, make them feel very like almost objectified in a backwards way. I never understood that, but if I really think about that, it's like the only reason I'm speaking to you is get to a goal, and then when I'm done, we're done. So I like to make it very clear that we're friends. I care about you. I love you. Yeah. And then I like to bring some stuff up. Yeah, for sure. In your love for them. Yeah. Because, I mean, we've had this conversation a lot too. Like, if we really do love and care about people, we want to be there for them, and we want to be able to help meet practical needs as well as spiritual needs. And if we really do care about people and we say that we love them, we do also have a moral obligation as Christians to, at some point, share our faith with them, right? Yeah, one of the things that we were talking about this earlier today, that you're particularly seemingly gifted in, is helping people go from atheism to theism. Yeah. Okay, so talk about your generation and talk about what you've seen work talking with younger generation of people. So, emotional arguments seem to be the way most people who are, I'd say, post-born 2000 argue. They generally argue very emotionally, I feel this way, I don't like that you're making me feel this way. So generally you think you argue or you debate with someone in the type of argument that they use. And I've actually noticed theologically and religiously and ideologically in general that just doesn't work. So I actually like to take it from a completely analytical point. So instead of being like, well, I've felt God, and I've felt his presence, I've felt miracles, I like to take it from, okay, well, I break down why. Oh, evolution is statistically improbable.
Right.
Or the Big Bang scientifically couldn't work out.
Yeah.
Unless there was a higher power to make the initial explosion.
Yeah.
So I just take it step by step. So the two things that people my age who are atheists believe in, first off, they're actually not atheists generally.
Yeah.
Second off, the two main things that are believed in my age category is the Big Bang and evolution. So when you're trying to kill a dragon, you start from the heart, right? So I start from the heart of it, and I tear down the Big Bang theory. My issue with it was always, so the very, very old concept was 2 meteors hit, boom, they explode, everything's created. That's not the modern idea anymore. The idea is that there was like a friction of atomic particles, and then they created an explosion, and that explosion created a bunch of rocks, and those rocks made a primordial soup, and then blah 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 blah, blah billions of years later. So my issue with that is there's always the question of what created those particles to rub against each other.
Right.
So there's a lot of laws of thermodynamics and of like the universe, and matter cannot be created nor destroyed, only changed.
Right.
Unless there is a being that lives outside of it.
Right.
So within the own laws of physics, there can't be a universe without something that's outside of it. Because if matter can't be created nor destroyed, either you're saying the universe has always been in here, which is a self-defeating argument because that just can't be. Yeah. Or there's a third option. Which is God. Right. Or some deity. But for me it's God because there's a lot of reasons for that. Yeah. So I explained how, okay, for friction you need energy. And energy is a form of matter. What created this matter? So what created the things that are rubbing together? What created the force to rub them together? And then they exploded. And obviously this argument has been used 100 million times, but explosions just don't create order. Right. They don't. If I throw a grenade into a pile of dirt, it's just going to spread the dirt. It's not going to make a house. Right. If I start like digging through sand, it's just going to become broken up sand, you know? Right, right. It's those two particles have no reason to do anything more than split up or combine rather than make an entire universe. Right. And my second issue with evolution is adaptations and mutations are always negative. There's another law of physics, or the universe basically, where if things are left on their own to deal with on themselves, they only get worse. Yeah. If I leave an apple out, it doesn't become a more delicious apple, it rots. Yeah. Yeah, I believe that's the second law of thermodynamics. If you leave a house alone for 1,000 years, it's going to crumble. It's not going to become a mansion. Right. If I leave $100 for 100 years, it's going to be worth $10. Right. Things, when you leave them, never get better. They only get worse. So why, when you leave these non-sentient single organisms on their own, how do they turn from that to microorganisms, to fish, to weird land creatures, to apes, to the missing link to humans? Right. That breaks our laws of physics. Right. So you're already breaking the first and second law. Right. And that is just the heart of your belief. And even if you break one, it's already infeasible. Like, it's already not possible. Right. So then I break through, well, an animal can only, if I put a ape in a female's womb, it would die. Because a womb is only made for the creature that it's made for. And obviously the argument for that is, well, apes aren't giving birth to humans. Sorry, we were interrupted briefly, but back to the evolution argument, with, again, things being left on their own, they only get worse. There's also the second issue of a womb is made and completely created around that one species. And even if there's a small mutation, or as babies, if they have a second limb or a third leg, they might not make it, right? Now, when this adaptation, the larger and larger the adaptations get, the higher the mortality rate. So my one issue is, first off, the mortality rate would be higher. Okay, that's feasible. A baby could be born with mutations that makes it closer to being a human. But then the second issue is that, let's say there's ape A, then there's type B, and then there's human. That's simplifying it, of course. But there's one step in between ape and human. Let's say 1 out of every million apes gives birth to a type B, right? One step away from human. So 1 out of every million apes, boom, a type B is born. Let's say it's a female. Now we're assuming that that type B finds a type B male. Again, 1 in a million times 1 in a million times a million, that's 10 billion. So that's a 1 in 10 billion chance that there's 2 females. That's a 50% chance that it's another male. then that's an even smaller percent chance that they're sexually compatible. Then that's an even smaller percent chance that they find each other, that they're in the same age range, that both their sexual organs work. And then let's say they do find each other. That 1 in a million finds the other 1 in a million. They both happen to be the same gender, different genders, in the same age range, both have functioning sex organs, and find each other when they're in heat. Because of course, they're not having sex all the time. So we have to assume, because just because they find each other, they're not intelligent enough to know to stick together. They just see another creature. So we have to assume that they find each other while they're in heat, and they don't have sex with another creature, because again, like, they don't care. It's like a Doberman having sex with a Chihuahua. Like, it doesn't, they're not differentiating. So we have to assume all that happens, and then they have a child. But since now that's getting closer and closer to human, now the gene pool would get mutated. So now we have to find more of these 1 in a millions, and enough of them so that the gene pool doesn't get too mutated that they just become completely deformed. This process has to happen over and over and over for billions of years, continuously, without breaking once. And if it breaks once, we're reset to base monkey. And again, there is so many steps on this process, and they're assuming that this happened flawlessly, all in one go, without a single hiccup on the road.
With every species of animal on the planet.
Throughout all stages of evolution. Again, this would have to happen from single cell organisms all the way to humans.
Right.
And there is thousands of steps between that.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so if he lost any of you with that, he's just basically giving one argument why evolutionary processes...
It's statistically improbable. Completely.
Right, exactly. And one of the arguments that I really appreciate is, if you look at a heart, in order for a human being to have a heart, blood vessels, and blood functioning, if you believe in evolution, okay, what are you saying created itself first? Because the body wouldn't create a heart if there weren't blood vessels and blood to pump.
So they all would have had to be created simultaneously in a way that is cohesive with each other
as a system,
so that they all combine as one system.
Yeah.
And if there's a single vein that offshoots wrong, because again, this is mutation. Mutations are negative, so why are they all positive for billions of years continuously? Anyway.
Yeah.
Even if one little offshoot of a single vein was off, you bleed out and die.
Right.
So it's just a crazy, crazy theory.
Yeah, and so, I mean, really what you're describing, you went off on one tangent there, and there are so many that you give arguments for, so many. But statistically, what you're saying is evolution is...
Improbable. It's fantasy land.
Yeah, and so it actually requires more faith than a belief.
Actually, I fully believe that believing in evolution takes more faith than being a Christian.
Yeah. And
that's because there's so much less evidence for evolution than there is for Christianity. So actually, if people who believe in evolution actually know what they're talking about, I actually have a level of respect for them for how much faith they have in their own belief because of how unbelievably improbable it is.
Yeah. That's quite a statement. And, you know, as we're saying that too, it's not because we disrespect people who are agnostic or atheistic. It's just that what we've run into a lot of times is people who say that they're agnostic or atheistic, they haven't actually delved into the depths of what they say that they believe. You know, they've often just read it in a textbook.
And that's what they were taught in school.
Taught in school, and so they get this partial image, but they oftentimes don't even recognize how statistically impossible, when you look at all the angles of it, that it actually is. Yeah. And this past summer, we had the privilege of going to the Ark Encounter in Kentucky.
Yeah, that was incredible.
Yeah, that was really cool. And so, yeah, we don't have to go down all of that, but just share a little bit about, because you were talking about millions and billions of years, and how you often talk with people and kind of debunk why you would say to them that that isn't possible. Yeah. So just talk a little bit maybe about a couple of the facts that you would share with people if something comes up about the age of the earth or Noah's Ark, or that's just some story that you believe, it's a fairy tale. So why don't you talk a little bit about what we saw, what we experienced, what you know about that?
Well, first thing, when people deny Noah's existence entirely, I just believe that's intellectual suicide, because we literally have found the boat. It is true to the dimensions of the Bible, exactly 1-to-1, and it was literally found in Turkey.
In the mountains of Ararat.
In the mountains of Ararat, where it would have...
Where we're told it was.
Where we were told it landed.
Yeah.
So to say that, to discount the entire story, I think is just intellectually dishonest. I genuinely don't believe that you can be true to yourself, understand what you're talking about, be researched on it, and just say it never happened. The type that I can respect is saying the world didn't flood. Sure. I can at least sympathize with that ideology, because that does sound like a crazy claim. but there's actually a lot of evidence for it.
Okay, so share a little bit about that.
So the reason we find almost all our fossils at the same level is the best time for fossils to be created is fast compaction with no oxygen, and it is just squeezed like a hydraulic press. When does that happen? Flash floods. An enormous flash flood. A flash flood that is unprecedentedly large that has never been seen since. So when it says the earth cracked open and water came gushing out, right? So if you think of it like a geyser, when it falls down, that is a lot of force. And you have to think about how big these geysers would have been to flood the entire earth to the point where Mount Everest would have been not even touching the surface of the water. This would have had to been an enormous amount of water in a very quick amount of time. So the pressure of that water coming down would have absolutely compressed that dirt.
Right.
So it makes sense why almost 99.9% of the fossils we find are in the same archaeological timeline. Because almost all of them were created, I believe, in Noah's flood.
Yeah.
And they're just preserved so unbelievably well. There's actually been water droplets from that time period that have been preserved as fossils, which I find incredible.
Right.
So yeah, there's flash flood evidence, there's evidence of cracking, and there is evidence that humans were wiped out by a big thing.
Right.
And there isn't actually any other archaeologically backed up evidence of anything else that would have happened.
Right.
So if there's a book, and it's the most cross-referenced book in the world, which is literally how we define the authenticity of books, that's the Bible, by the way. Yeah. And it has the only explanation for why humans at one point were nearly wiped out that is archaeologically viable. Why would we discount that? So we have evidence of the boat existing. We have evidence of humans being wiped out. We have evidence of a flash flood from that rough time era. And it's being said by the most cross-referenced historical book of all time. You don't have much reason to deny that. I just don't really see the argument.
Right. And it's interesting because the Turkish government has actually acknowledged Noah's Ark. Yeah. And there's actually street signs that they have pointing people where they can actually go and visit the actual Ark that's been discovered in the mountains of Ararat, which is pretty cool. That's something that people can look up.
And they did a form of an X-ray scan deep into the earth, and they found that it was made out of the same materials and the same type of sap that they said
for
was
pitch,
used in the Bible.
that,
for pitch.
that God
was the
told
word.
Noah to use. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. So there's some stuff, there was an interesting argument that you gave earlier today when we were chatting. We were talking about how you've had conversations with people your age about you wouldn't die for something that you know is an outright lie. Do you remember the conversation we were having?
Yeah, I do.
So would you just share a little bit, because we were talking about martyrs and people dying for their faith and people dying for their belief in Jesus in the Middle East and stuff. So why don't you share a little bit about that?
So that just made me think of, because we were talking about Revelation, my favorite chapter of the Bible is Revelation 10 to 11. And we were talking about John. And John, of course, they tried to boil him in oil, and it just didn't work.
Right.
So that had me thinking, because you've most likely heard the argument of, oh, you wouldn't die for a lie. And we've all thought about that. You're like, yeah, well, they might have been in shame, they might have blah, 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 blah. I don't think that happened. And some people are like, well, anyway, there's a lot of excuses for
and
it.
this is when people are trying to discredit
the
disciples or whatever.
Yeah,
right.
For dying for their faith.
Right. Yeah. I don't know why there were bunny quotes there, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm saying, and they're like,
yeah.
That's a whole other tangent. I promise. Some people discount that they ever even died, but that's just a weird.
There's just
people.
There's just too much.
If there's a story, people will deny it.
Sure. Of course.
So my first thought was, we've all heard of that, and then I really thought about it, and I was like, that's actually a lot crazier than it sounds, because if I was held at even knife point, right? I'm not even getting tortured. I'll die right away. I will say gunpoint. If someone's holding me at gunpoint, they're like, deny that this lady is your mom. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna deny that you're my mom.
Oh.
If someone's like, deny that you're wearing a dark blue shirt, I'm gonna deny it. Now these things are true, and I'm willing to deny them. And I was like, is there anything I wouldn't deny? I was thinking about it, and I was like, would I deny that my dad's my dad to save my life? Yeah. Would I deny that I go to the school I go to? Yeah. Would I deny that my best friend is my friend? Of course. It's saving my life, right? I can just go back to my normal
you're just
existence.
going through the arguments that people would have of basically the compromises that people would make to save their life.
And I can't think of a single thing that I wouldn't deny to save my life. And I was thinking about lies. Well, absolutely not. I'm not gonna die to not admit that I'm not actually a purple person. Of course, I'll just admit it. And I was thinking, what is the one thing that I wouldn't be willing to lie about? And that's if I truly believe and know that my Lord and Savior is, I met him and I follow him. And I can't think of a single other thing that I wouldn't deny than God. Because I would deny that this is my house. I would deny that you're my mom, no offense. I would deny that I'm clothed right now. I would deny anything. But the one thing that I can feasibly think of that I wouldn't deny, even if my life is on the line, is that I truly believe and know that this man is God.
Right. So why does that land so differently? Like, as you're going through this process and you're inviting people to think about their own honesty, if they're at gunpoint or if they're in a situation and they're trying to save their life, why does Jesus as your Lord and Savior, why does that land so differently than everything else, and tie that into what you're walking people through?
Because that's an eternal problem.
Right.
And all these things are temporary. Right. It's temporary issues compared to eternal ones, right?
That's a good
and
point.
I can deny a temporary thing. This house is only my house for as long as I live. I'm only wearing these clothes for the day. But God will be God for eternity. And that is the least deniable thing, basically. It is what matters most. It is the most important thing that ever has been, ever will be, and currently is.
And the eternal consequences.
Exactly, the eternal consequences.
Of that decision.
So I'm not saying I'm a Christian because I'm scared of hell.
Right.
But it's a factor. You know?
Right. Yeah.
And there's nothing more important than God and my religion and my faith in Jesus.
Yeah.
So
a quick question.
Yeah.
If the factor of the fear of hell isn't the main thing, just before you get into the rest of that important argument, share a little bit about what is the most important factor.
I believe it's to glorify God, and I think the Bible says that too. If you think about it, like if he came down on earth today and we truly could comprehend how perfect this man was, I don't think anybody wouldn't worship him. And people are like, well, I don't see it, so I don't believe it. I don't see air, but I still breathe. You know, you don't have to see something to believe in it. I don't.
Yeah. You don't see the wind.
Exactly, but I still believe it's real, right?
Yeah.
I don't see my heart, but I know it's pumping.
Right.
So just because I don't believe something, or just because I don't see something doesn't mean I can't use context clues of literally my entire existence, my personal experiences, historical backups, archaeological finds, and everything just points to God is real. Yeah. Or at very least there's a creator.
And I think what you're saying there, it's a really important point. What Torin is saying is the context clues. And I think for faith, that's something that we can look at. We're just talking about a couple of those things today, but the context clues of archaeological evidence. Yeah, I mean, you'd be better. You're more gifted at talking about this than I am, so I get to learn from you as well, to be honest, and that's pretty humbling. So carry on.
My last closing point is the one reason I always veer from personal experiences is because I veer for that actually in every debating subject, because to be honest, even if they're not being, those can just be lied. You can't lie about archaeological evidence, because that's all these things. You can look them up, you can research, you can check out your own sources. But if I say in my room I met God and he prayed for me and he anointed me to be the next disciple. Yeah. First off, that's not true. Second off, that is not verifiable. So I never argue with things that aren't verifiable. Now, if I got this on video somehow, sure, I can use that because I can verify that. But anything that's not verifiable, I try to keep that out of my arguments because it's not really arguable either way. So like if a Buddhist was like, Buddha himself spoke to me, I can't argue with that because there's nothing to argue on, because either he's lying or Buddha's real. That's the same reason I don't use those arguments, because either I'm lying or God's real, and there's nothing they can really say to rebuttal. The only times I do explain these kind of things is in personal testimonies to fellow believers, or just something interesting that happened to a secular friend that isn't used as a point of convincing. Or it is, but they're at a close enough point where we mutually trust each other to not just make up things for the sake of conversion. Yeah, for sure. Thank you. And so to kind of tie in, so that this isn't a crazy long video today, because there's honestly, we spend hours and hours talking about this stuff, which I love conversations with you, and we challenge each other. And so what would you say to anyone listening who today maybe they aren't a Christian, or maybe they have a loved one who isn't a Christian,
what would be some things that you would say to them to encourage them to consider going from whatever agnosticism or atheism that they have to a point of theism, to a point of why they should consider Jesus?
Well, to anyone who doesn't currently believe in God, I'm not going to tell you to be a Christian because that's your choice, but I will tell you to actually look into it and be honest with yourself if that seems true. And the reason I'm so comfortable telling you to not just be a Christian but to check it out yourself is because I know it's true, and if you truly look unbiasedly, you will find that it's true. I have never met a person in my life who truly, unbiasedly, unignorantly, without pride and ego in their mind, just researched the facts, who did not come to the conclusion that Jesus Christ is real. So I'm not going to tell you to become a Christian. I'm just going to tell you, please look at the facts with an open heart. And if you don't end up coming to that conclusion, then that's your path, and I hope you do eventually find him. But if it's with an open heart and you truly do look hard enough, I believe you'll find him.
Yeah, and the Bible talks about seeking and you will find.
Yeah.
And so we really do believe too that if that's your situation today, first of all, thank you so much for sticking with us and listening to a bit of our conversation. And we really are confident that if you seek, as Torin said, with an open heart, that you will find the truth and you will find Jesus Christ. And he'll change your life.
Yeah, and one more thing is people who don't believe in God, whenever there's theological debates, they always have to come up with more excuses. And I always find that the side that has to come up with the most excuses, the most outreaching points, is generally the side that's incorrect.
Oh, that's an interesting point.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you actually if you would say a quick prayer for the people out here, two things, that don't know Jesus, and who are open enough or would maybe consider being open enough to consider some of the things that you've shared today, and also people who have loved ones, family members or friends who don't know Jesus, but maybe they do, and maybe they would like to have some tools to be able to share with love like you talked about. So if you just sort of end this for us with a prayer.
If you could bow your hands, close your eyes, and fold your hands.
All right.
Of course, it's optional. But God, I pray for anyone watching who isn't saved, that they would truly look on a path non-ignorantly and open-heartedly, and that I pray that they would find the facts to find you, and they wouldn't just blindly follow you, but they would truly and concretely be able to confidently go to bed at night knowing that you're real. And if anyone watching at home has a close family member who isn't saved, or a friend, or a relative, or just anyone who they truly care about, I pray that you would fill them with the Holy Spirit and give them the words that they need to know, and talk into their life in a way that would be so impactful and so just such a revelation that they would truly be stopped in their tracks and just have to think, that was so incredibly impactful, like that was not nothing. And I pray that that would lead them, that alone would be able to lead them on the path to finding you, Lord. And I pray for the health and safety and just the well-being of everyone who's watching this. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I loved having you here.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Torin. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, like and subscribe for more godly encouragement. Have an amazing day and God bless you.
Bye.